Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some entitled parent stories and our first story of the day is by H&R 2000, entitled Dad Causes Trouble in a Restaurant, Sweet Kids Beg Him to Stop. So I was out with my family at a restaurant. It was a well-liked and highly reviewed Chinese restaurant. This story is short but sweet. My family and I were sat eating our food when entitled parent and sweet kids are seated a few tables away. Entitled dad seemed pretty friendly, asking staff questions about the place and having general conversations with them. They order their food arrives, and they start eating. While they're eating, a fly lands on entitled dad's food. The fly didn't come from the kitchen. It wasn't on the plate or in the food. It came through the entrance and was flying around the restaurant. Entitled dad was complaining about it to sweet kids who were laughing and joking about it. Entitled dad says, "It's really not funny, girls. It's a sign of poor hygiene. Do I look like I'm laughing? This is serious." Entitled dad calls a waitress over and says, "A fly just landed on his food. What are you going to do about it? It put me right off my food." Waitress asks if it was in the food when it came out of the kitchen, and entitled dad said, "No, it just landed on it." Waitress stood there unsure of what she was supposed to do about it. She offered to take the food back to the kitchen and get a replacement, but he said no. Entitled dad continued to complain to her. Side note, I work in hospitality, and there is literally nothing you can do about a fly that comes in through the entrance to the building when customers come in. I genuinely don't know what he was expecting of her. Eventually, waitress goes to get the restaurant manager, and even he didn't know what to do. He apologized, but there really wasn't anything he could do about it besides offer him more food. Sweet kids were still laughing at this point, and entitled dad was telling them off because of how serious it was. Eventually, entitled dad loses his temper and says, "You know what, it doesn't matter, I'll just eat it," or something along those lines. The restaurant manager and waitress walk away. Entitled dad is still complaining to sweet kids and he doesn't touch any more of his food. Sweet kids are still happily eating. Entitled dad forces the sweet kids to leave their food and leave the restaurant. He asks for the bill. The waitress says, 35 British pounds, please." "Really? Do you think you should charge me that much when I didn't eat the food?" Waitress again stood there, not knowing what to do. They continued telling him he had to pay 35 pounds, and entitled dad continued refusing. Entitled dad was close to shouting, and restaurant manager and waitress were trying to resolve it. Sweet kids were literally almost crying by this point, shouting, "Dad, stop, just pay the bill so we can leave," and things like that. Entitled dad says, "Go wait outside, girls. I'm not paying 35 pounds for food I didn't even eat." This went on for literally about an hour. Entitled dad then goes, "I'm not paying 35 pounds. I'll pay 10 pounds and nothing more." Then slams his money on the counter and leaves. Both restaurant manager and waitress are in complete shock, and I am ranting to my family by this point because I worked as a waitress and felt terrible for the staff. What was entitled dad expecting them to do? They can't stand at every door and window and kill every fly that tries to enter. It wasn't in any way their fault. And entitled dad refused to have a new meal brought out. Restaurant manager came over to us and apologized, and all of my mom said, "What a Richard." And this made restaurant manager and waitress smile a bit. They were comforted by the fact that we agreed with them in thinking entitled dad was out of order. It was a lot more dramatic than it sounds here, I promise. So let me ask you guys, if you're eating at a restaurant and a fly comes flying in and lands on your plate or your food, do you think that you would be entitled to just not having to pay for the food altogether? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by El Capitan 2020, entitled Grandmother Rants That Her Grandchild Spends Too Much Time Studying and Not Enough Time Calling Her. So this happened last week when my mother-in-law visited for a memorial service of death in the family. Some important extra background. My mother-in-law moved homes 10 years ago, against our advice, which means she lives considerably more hours drive away. So my son spent a lot of the day studying. His final high school exams are literally underway right now. He then emerges for dinner around 7 p.m. The following exchange then occurs. Mother-in-law says, "I've barely seen you all day." Son says, "Yeah, sorry, I'm really busy and stressed at the moment with exams." Mother-in-law suddenly aggressive, "Too busy for your own grandmother?"
I've made the trip all the way down here and haven't seen you at all. I could do with some more of your time.
Son says, look, I really need to get a lot done. I'll have more time after exams.
No, I want you to spend at least 2 hours with me tomorrow. I haven't seen you since March.
Son says, that can't happen. I'm too busy.
The nerve of a generation, so self-absorbed and selfish, don't even make time for their own families.
As she was now yelling, I told her that we were glad our son was working hard and she'd have to understand. She then screamed that we were bad parents for raising an entitled brat. Ironic. I gave my son his dinner and told him to go eat it elsewhere. Later, I spoke to my son and told him how proud I was that he stayed calm in this tough environment and that he was completely in the right. I let my wife deal with her mother. Still can't believe the entitlement that she thinks our son owes her time during one of the most busiest and stressful periods of his life. Karens aren't all middle-aged. You can't help but feel for the kid in the situation because they're actually working very hard on studying for their exam and under a lot of pressure, understandably, and then being yelled at your grandmother being called entitled and selfish and all these negative things. It's really just not what you need at all during a time like that where there's a lot of pressure on you. This next story is by aitacrybaby. Karen insults others for not being religious, gets puked on by a crafty kid. Note, if you're easily disgusted by nausea, this might not be the story for you. My aunt, we'll call her Karen here, seemed to have an obsession with virtue signaling. Growing up, she loved telling others how better she was than everyone else. Her go-to points for this were being vegan and being Christian. This story is about the latter. For many Christmases, Aunt Karen would make a point to tell me or my dad what bad people we were for not being religious like she was. We never went to church, and my dad never made me take Sunday school. I remember Aunt Karen saying things like, "That's not gonna get you to heaven, you know," or "It's called Christmas for a reason. There's no Santa Claus in the Bible." She made snide remarks when my cousins and I watched cartoons with Santa in them. At one point, when I was a little older, she even said something to the effect of, "People who don't celebrate Christmas for anything other than Christ will go to hell." I don't know why my dad kept inviting her over. Something about Christmas makes people think they're obligated to be toxic people only because they're family. One Christmas Eve, I was already in my moody, rebellious teen years, so I wasn't very merry to begin with. I dreaded having to spend another night with people that couldn't stand each other. And Karen was especially snide this year, making comments like, "You wouldn't be so gloomy if you went to church for once." Or, "Kids today need the fear of God to straighten up. OP's sins are making him miserable." The last straw was when I heard Karen essentially tell my dad, "Your son will grow up to be a criminal if he's not taught about God in the Bible." I had enough of this lady being a witch every Christmas, so I hatched a plan to get her out of my dad's house. When I was a kid, I used to be lactose intolerant, but my dad kept a jug of milk in the fridge to go with the Christmas cookies he bought for our relatives. When no one was looking, I drank a glass of milk in the kitchen and carried on like nothing had happened. After a while, I started feeling nauseous but tried my best to hide it. I made sure to stay near Aunt Karen whenever I could. Eventually, I started gagging, and then finally, I let out a projectile of white gunk and stomach acid on Aunt Karen. She screamed in horror about me being a disgusting little brat and how her sparkling red dress was ruined. I pretended to cry and act remorseful, making my other relatives sympathize with me. My dad was frustrated that he had to clean the carpet and sent me to my room. I eavesdropped on Karen lashing out at my dad for getting puked on, and finally, my dad seemed to get the hint that his sister shouldn't have been invited. He told her to leave, so she did with my cousins in tow. I got in trouble for not using the bathroom when I threw up, but I didn't care. Karen made Christmas miserable for me, my dad, and most likely my cousins, her kids, so I decided to return the favor. I thought I'd take this small victory to my grave, until I discovered Reddit. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal! You know, when I started reading entitled parent stories today, I don't think I would have ever guessed I purposefully threw up on my aunt as a possible story today. But it did work. Our next story is by Xman90154. My dad tried taking away my PlayStation I paid for and got mad when I did not just hand it over. Okay, so here is some quick information on my father before I get into the story. So my father is an entitled parent. He is always quick to make decisions without talking to my mom. Besides that, my father has always been harsher on me than any of my other siblings. Examples being, he is always quick to violence with me, often trying to corner me in a place I can't run because he is blocking the exit and doing it when no one else is around, so there is no proof to what I am saying. In recent years, he has been caught doing this, and so my family recently has been more inclined to believe me now. Even when he is not violent, he is quicker to take stuff away from me with little reason to do so, like taking away my phone for a week because I did not have time to do the dishes, often my little brother made in the middle of the night before I go to school. So here is the actual story now. So this year had been hard on me. On top of the coronavirus, my little brother, who was an entitled brat, had been causing chaos in my house ever since quarantine began. He would often go on political rants over the smallest things that would last hours, or he would belittle my mom because she was scared of the coronavirus and she has asthma. If anyone would call out my little brother, he would get even angrier and I would have to protect my mom from my 14-year-old brother, who is like 5'11" and growing. Well, eventually school began again, and for 2 weeks, me and my older sister had to watch him while my mom went to work, so my little brother would not go and yell racist stuff at his teachers, which he did multiple times. After 2 weeks, he was put in a mental hospital, something we had been arranging in secret for months. By the way, my little brother's outbursts had got so bad I had nightmares of them. Once he was gone, all the stress I had been holding in hit me all at once, and so for a few weeks my grades had started to slip as I was trying to process everything that had happened and recover. My grades were slipping, but I still went to my Zoom meetings. One of my teachers got worried about me because I had them in the year prior, and they noticed something was wrong with me, and so I told them everything that happened, and they understood. They were such a kind teacher. So, skip about a week and I had started doing my schoolwork again, and I was confident I could get caught up because I still had a few weeks ahead of me because I went to a school that had 9-week grading periods. So, the same day I was starting to get back on track, I was working in my room, which is directly across from my parents', and I heard my dad come out of his room and approach mine, but he did not knock. Instead, he went back into his room. I had gotten a really bad feeling because my dad, if he ever has something to tell me, he just always tells me through my door or knocks. He never just waits to tell me something later. Me being worried, I left my room and listened by his door. He was on the phone with my teacher. She was calling him because she was worried about me and was talking with him on getting a plan to put me back on track. She also mentioned on how at the time I was failing her class and a few others. After the call ended, he came out of his room and saw me standing there and asked for my phone. I turned it off and handed it to him. He then said that he was taking my PlayStation until my grades get back up, and I told him no. I had purchased my PlayStation with money I made from a job I had early this year, and I told him he could take anything else, even my TV, but not my PlayStation. He tried arguing with me, but I said if he took my property, I would retaliate in the future. When I said that, he started coming towards me like he was going to punch me, but I yelled as loud as I could for my older sister who was downstairs listening to the conversation, and she ran upstairs in less than 20 seconds. My dad, angry for losing his chance to attack me and blame me for starting a violent interaction, got pissed and proceeded to pick up a soundbar and break it in half over my mother's jewelry box she had for 30 years. After that, he yelled at my sister to take me away from him, which I don't know why he did that as I was staying calm. I never even yelled. There is more to the story. I might post it later depending on if people want to hear it. So I'm definitely not in a position to really speculate on the overall situation here, but it definitely strikes me as this dad having some kind of genuine anger issue. Whether you could argue something like bipolar, that's not really my position to do that, but I don't know how you can convince them to actually get checked out, but I feel like OP's father definitely needs to be actually clinically checked out. And our final story of the day is by that-one-aussie. Entitled Parent says, "When I do this it hurts, immediately does it, is shocked when I pass out." So this happened yesterday and I'm still shook. Basically, our school had an award ceremony for our sport teams. Our school is well known for being very athletically competitive, going to states and regionals and such. Casting. OP is me, duh. BF is best friend 1, BF2 is best friend 2. EB is embarrassed kid, was really polite, feel bad for him. EP was entitled parent, and OFN is office nurse. Please note I'm 13, weigh 31 kilograms, 68 pounds, and am really super small. So after an excruciating amount of time sitting on concrete in my own world, everyone started to get up and take photos with family and friends with their medals and ribbons and stuff. Me and my friends found each other. Important to note we were all standing sorta close to the kids receiving stuff, so we were easily spotted. And after a while of chatting, a super tall boy wearing like 4 ribbons walks up to me and awkwardly asks if he can pick me up. Not uncommon for short people to hear. Because he's curious or something, I don't know. Anyway, this is how the conversation went. Hey, I don't mean to be weird, but can I like pick you up? Oh, sorry, I usually say yes, but I have a bit of a health prob. Entitled parent says,
What do you mean no?
She put emphasis on the O for some reason.
My sweet boy just wants to lift you. It's not inappropriate.
So I currently have a mystery infection in my lungs. I've been in and out of the hospital and doctors are stumped by it. Anyway, being lifted or laying with my head lower than my legs stops me breathing and occasionally it just gets really bad. Even when I'm not doing anything, even when I'm sleeping. And because I'm really skinny, I can feel my bones moving on each other. Can even hear it sometimes. So I get cramped pretty easily. I'm perfectly healthy, I just have a really fast metabolism. Oh no, I know it's not inappropriate, I just have a lung problem right now and that
Oh, stop whining, you're lying and I know it.
Mom, please stop, it's okay. She said no,
No, this spoiled little witch should let you pick her up, it's not a big ask.
She then reaches for me, in which my friends intervene. Best friend 1 says, she's not lying, she's been in the hospital, plus it's none of your business? Best friend 2 says, yeah, you are literally trying to grab a minor. Entitled parent, this lady wouldn't let anyone finish their sentences.
Oh, don't give me that. I know she's lying. If she was so sick, she wouldn't be here.
And then this witch literally pushed past my absolutely amazing friends and grabs me by the bottom of my ribs. Now, this may be okay for other people, but like I mentioned, lung problems and weight problems, so when she grabbed my ribs, she grabbed my ribs. There was a thin layer of skin between her and my bone. She then lifts me up, in which I flail in agony. Jesus, the pain. Not only was she crushing me, I couldn't breathe.
See, you're lying. Stop screaming. I'm not hurting you.
And that's all I remember before passing out. Other than my friends freaking losing their minds screaming for her to drop me, and literally an entire hall of people turning to look at my bony flesh sack flailing in the air. Anyway, I woke up with office nurse leaning over me with my spacer, the mask they used to give me my Ventolin, and the crazy entitled parent in cuffs for assault on a minor, etc. Turns out, my lungs literally stopped for around 5 seconds and I turned completely blue. Anyway, I get tested in the back of the ambo and had a fun talk with the paramedics telling them about this crazy witch. They laughed and said I should press charges. I am. That lady could have murdered me. So yeah, I'm in the hospital right now. Turns out I have one dislocated rib. The bottom rib where she grabbed me got pushed under the rest, which is why my lung stopped for a bit. I don't know what is gonna happen. We will charge her 100%, but I'm gonna try and avoid being too involved because it's midterm right now and I need to get through high school. Yeah, right when I read through the incident going down, I immediately jumped to, this is assault and this lady should be in handcuffs. So I was very relieved to hear that not only did this entitled parent get arrested, but they're going to get charged too. The fact that that happened is absolutely ridiculous. It's not even the assault part, it's the basic human decency to respect someone's space. In no way would it ever be acceptable for anyone to go and randomly pick up somebody that they didn't know. I definitely hope the Karen ends up with some actual charges. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you enjoyed the stories today, let me know which one was your personal favorite and why in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, please like this video and subscribe and turn notifications on because anything you do helps this channel grow so much more. So no matter what you do, whether it was just watching the video, liking, subscribing, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here.